This is Unbridled with Susan Kayne, presented by Thoroughbred. Family-owned and operated since 1949. Thoroughbred produces specially designed horseshoes, racing plates, and therapeutic products to enhance equine performance. Learn more at thoroughbredinc.com.
Hi, I'm Susan Kayne. In today's show, join me in conversation with amazing educators, artists, and authors at Equine Affaire.
At the very beginning of my farrier career, I really knew nothing at all about working metal. So I started making hot handmade shoes and hot rasping, and because of the hot rasping, during that time you would see where the color came in.
We'll make the bones stronger by increasing the mineralization, and the cortex and the matrix of the bone will be stronger. And it also plays a role in improving the strength of connective tissue, tendons, ligaments, cartilage, any type of soft tissue.
Thrush and white line needs to really be treated from the inside out.
Well, I've had a chance to catch up with a real sweetheart of a guy, Buck Kalinowski, at the Equine Affaire. Buck, you have an amazing story. Please tell our unbridled viewers about Cupid and Arrow.
2 weeks after Valentine's Day, 1999, I rescued this little horse at an auction. And she was given the name of Cupid because she possessed a perfect little heart on her forehead. And we nursed her back to health, taught her to ride. I work with kids, and together at the farm, we teach kids that good can come from situations that look totally hopeless. And in this particular case, Cupid had a little secret. And the secret was she was pregnant, and no one knew it. And 11 months after she was rehabilitated, taught to ride, became a little show horse, went to her first show, took home a blue ribbon. The whole time she's carrying a baby and no one knows it. 2 weeks before Valentine's Day the following year, she delivers this little colt, and the colt is born with an amazing arrow on his butt. And it prompted me to write a children's book called Cupid's Secret. Breyer has modeled the horses, and Mustad has a cookie, a little heart-shaped cookie that my horse loves, and the condition of her coat and hooves is amazing.
Now, how did you find out about the heart-shaped treat from Mustad?
I was at a Expo, and I happened to be walking around, and I'm always picking up samples for my horses to try. And here I see this heart shape, and I said, I have to try this cookie. And Cupid's kind of finicky. Offered it to her. She ate it. I use it in all my presentations. And she's at the farm, it's actually on her supplement tray, these little cookies, heart-shaped.
And those are right balance treats from Mustad. Now, this is really hard to believe. I mean, all this with the hearts and the arrows. Have you had other experiences in your life that preceded this and would lead to it?
Well, I've always been the type of person to rescue an animal or to give an animal a second chance. And the fact that Cupid came into my life, I think it was God's way of saying, hey, thanks for all those little heartfelt help outs that you've done. And the couple years ago, I had a little dog that passed away. And my little dog possessed an arrow on its forehead. True story. And right after that dog passed away, my cousin in West Virginia owned her sister, and she was breeding her, and she was having puppies. Out of the 4 pups that were born, guess how many had that little arrow?
Don't tell me all 4.
None of them. But I said to her, you know what? Save me the little runt. The runt was born with an amazing heart on her body. And it's hard to believe. We have a website. I travel with the 3 animals. We talk to kids about never giving up and being kind to an animal, because you never know what good is going to come out of it.
And I understand that Cupid and Arrow are hitting the big screen.
They are. There is a movie contract in the works based on that story alone, and I'm not at liberty to discuss it just yet, but it includes animation and a series, and it's really exciting.
Well, Buck Kalinowski, you are a sweetheart of a guy. Thanks so much for getting unbridled. From backyard pets to competitive athletic partners to modern-day movie stars, thoroughbreds are changing the lives of people around the world. Esther, you are a farrier and a maker of spectacular artwork.
Thank you.
Can you tell us how your farrier work led to these beautiful line sculptures?
Sure. At the very beginning of my farrier career, I really knew nothing at all about working metal. So I started making hot handmade shoes and hot rasping, and because of the hot rasping, during that time you would see where the color came in. And I thought, well, if you could control that, maybe something could be done with that. And then I also learned to weld and braze, and through that and 16 years of practice, I decided to try some artwork. So I started with the line sculpture because it was a familiar medium, the steel, and then I went on to create different styles of horses and breeds, and it's led me to where I am today. One thing has led to another, and this has been a really good ending for my farrier career.
So is the steel that this horse is made out of, is that the same steel that you use to make horseshoes?
This is a cold rolled steel. It's a real high quality steel. I don't think it'd be quite the same. Usually you would have a hot rolled steel for the horseshoes, but the cold rolled just happens to have less slag. It's less cleanup for the artist after the making, but very, very similar. Same kind of carbon level.
And what were some of the things that you learned in making horseshoes? What techniques in working with steel that you've applied to making these beautiful creations?
Well, one of the things was that you learned how this medium of steel, when it's heated to a certain temperature, how flexible and pliable and wonderful it is. It's almost like working clay. Of course, it's hot, so you can't have your hands in it, but it is a very, very pliable and easy to work medium. And the other thing is, like with my wall sculptures, that the color comes out with different temperatures. And so I decided how to control that temperature and got all these rainbow of colors.
Now, are you working with a hammer and an anvil and a set of tongs like you would when you're making shoes?
No, only when I shoe my horse. No, right now, actually, I hand bend everything. I do, of course, heat it at a different place, and I'm hand bending the steel. Heat it and use gloves, or if it gets really close, then I'll use like channel lock pliers, that sort of a thing. But it's all hand bent. It's with that freedom of your hands, you can really get the right creative bends and curves to make the horse look very natural.
When you initially conceptualize a project, what is that starting point? What do you start with in your head, and how do you end up with this? Is this what you envisioned initially, or does it take shape and gain personality as you're going through the process?
Well, it does gain personality as you're going through the process. In fact, each and every one of them come out with a kind of a little personality. Each horse. Some of them you'd look like, well, I wouldn't want to own that one. And that's sort of just something that gets built in as you go. But the actual process, I first decide, like, if I'm going to make a rearing horse or this little colt that's called Full of It, I know that I wanted this horse to have its tail flipped up and have a little action. So I'll find some photographs of some colts that really appeal to me, and basically I'll just put those up and I start bending. And I make all 4 legs in the head, and the reason for that is that the legs need to be in the proper place so that it's going to have the movement you want, and the head is got measurements throughout the whole body, so that helps me keep it all in proportion. And once the legs are mounted, I just start building from the hindquarters forward, and it comes to life.
Is this the type of work that can be commissioned if somebody would like their specific horse in a line sculpture? Have you done that work?
Oh, yes. I've done this horse here, this rearing horse over here is my 84th horse, and the only ones available are here in the booth. They've all been sold. They're all over the United States, and most of those have been commission horses. And I do this powder coat finish, or I do a rust patina, and sometimes I do it with stainless steel for like white markings, like white socks and a blaze. So, but yes, like commission work is always welcome, and that is one of the most busy things that I do is to commission work. So.
And if our viewers would like to contact you for some of that commissioned work, where can they do that?
Okay, I have a website. It's esterbenedict.com. Or, of course, my phone number is 210-488-2478. And I'm always willing and ready to do it. And I also do a lot of other things besides horses. So if they wanted dogs running with their horses or anything, you can do it.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you.
I've had a chance to catch up with Dr. Amy Gill, a world-renowned equine nutrition scientist. Amy, you've discovered what we consider a revolutionary new product in silicon and Silaforce horses, it's better known as, to our viewers. What is silicon? Why is it important to horses?
Okay, Susan, yeah, actually it is very important to horses, particularly performance horses. Silicon is something that's very abundant in nature, but generally not in a biologically available form, meaning that the horse cannot take it up through the digestive tract. Monosilicic acid is a form of silicon that actually is very biologically available. It's very concentrated and very easy for the horse to assimilate. So the object here is to get some silicon into the horse. It will help to facilitate the uptake of calcium and phosphorus into the bone. It will make the bone stronger by increasing the mineralization. It will make the bone stronger by increasing the mineralization, and the cortex and the matrix of the bone will be stronger. And it also plays a role in improving the strength of connective tissue, tendons, ligaments, cartilage, any type of soft tissue.
How do you know that a horse needs silicon?
Well, it's not actually a required nutrient. It's not listed by the National Research Council that establishes the exact requirements for horses. However, there's some preliminary research that indicates we can indeed improve the strength of bone, cartilage, soft tissue. It absolutely is going to make a big effect on the performance horse, the growing horse, horses that are just entering into training. So there's some very good indications and some new research that are pointing to the fact that we should be adding silicon to the horse diet.
Is this something that should be added in addition to the many supplements we see like MSM or chondroitin sulfates to help the joints? How does it properly balance in with those supplements?
Right, yeah, there's some really tremendous joint supplements out there, but they all do different things. This product actually, Silaforce horses, which is monosilicic acid, there is no product available in the United States right now that actually has that as its active ingredient. And again, it will act differently within the joint, but in conjunction with a lot of those other supplements to help improve the entire integrity of the joint, ligaments, tendons, bone strength.
You are an accomplished rider. I can only assume that you use it on your horses. What are some of the differences that you've seen since feeding Silaforce?
Really tremendous, actually. Freedom of movement, horses that have had injuries in the past that were layups, that were healing. We've had accelerated bone healing. Greatly improved coat condition, and again, because of the effect it has on collagen, skin condition, hair, coat, hoof. You can see a tremendous amount of improvement there.
Is there any limitations on feeding the product? Must it be, kept to a specific daily, regimen?
Right. It's really a pretty innocuous ingredient. You don't have to worry about overdosing a horse. And fortunately, it can be fed in very small amounts. We only feed, for the average 1,000-pound horse that's on a maintenance dose, it's only 2.5 milliliters per day. You can go up to 5 milliliters per day if a horse is recovering from an injury or we're trying to prevent injury. There's no benefit of going over that amount, and so we try to make that very clear, to do it exactly according to the manufacturer's directions. But you don't have to worry if you do overdose a little bit that anything bad would happen to the horse.
In performance sports, horses are always tested. Does this test positive in any means?
No, this is, again, it's just a mineral. It's an element, actually. It's on the periodic table. And so it's naturally metabolized. It is not a drug in any shape or form, and so it would not test positive.
Have you seen use of the product in young horses? Is it something, you say it increases mineralization, and can you put into layman's terms how that would help maybe yearling sellers or breeders of thoroughbreds
Sure.
for racing?
Right, exactly. The bone, as a young growing horse grows, the bone elongates, and in order to do that, it actually has to lay down calcium and phosphorus. Silicon acts as a facilitator to help increase the amount of calcium and phosphorus that the bone is adding. So you have a stronger bone, a more dense bone. And of course, young horses like a yearling or a 2-year-old going into training, they are starting to put more and more stress on the bone. So the more calcium and phosphorus we have laid down in the bone, the stronger and denser the bone is going to be, less likely it would be to be injured.
Why hasn't this been brought to the market sooner?
Probably the technology, the ability to provide silicon in a biologically available source. There has been a product on the market for about 8-9 years called sodium zeolite A, which is also a biologically available form. However, you have to feed large amounts of this big white fluffy powder. You had to feed like a half a pound a day, and it was very hard to get horses to eat it. And what happens when they eat zeolite A is that it actually, once the horse ingests it, it's actually converted to the monosilicic acid that's in Silliforce horses. But they have to eat a large amount of it to get just a little bit of monosilicic acid out of it. So this Silliforce horse product is actually taking the technology one step further, and that's why we feed such a minuscule amount of it. It's very concentrated.
So to feed Silliforce is really a win-win all the way around. If it's non-toxic, you can't feed too much of it, it won't test, and from what you're telling me, it really seems to improve horses' well-being and performance capabilities.
Yeah, we need a lot more research, which luckily this company is backing the product with research. I think that's very important for any company that's dealing with the health issues in a horse, that you've got to back it with refereed research. There's some studies going on now at Michigan State University. Dr. Brian Nielsen is handling those investigations. But yeah, the early indications from preliminary research show that this is definitely going to be such a big help in horses that are in training to help prevent injuries. So it is available now in the United States, but it can also be ordered directly from the company and shipped from France.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much. That's Dr. Amy Gill about silicon and Silliforce horses.
Coming up later in the show,
we've gone to a clear span building, a lot of natural light.
That's later in the show on Unbridled with Susan Kayne.
Dan Moore is well known as the natural vet. He is a doctor of veterinarian medicine, and now he practices homeopathic remedies. In just a few minutes, Andrew Ellsbury will catch up with Dr. Dan.
I'm here with Dr. Dan Moore, a veterinarian, the natural veterinarian. We wanted to talk with you a little bit today. I see you're doing a lecture at the Equine Affaire on horses and natural cures for horses. What can you tell us about thrush and white line disease?
Well, that's a really good question. Thrush and white line it's definitely a problem in our horses. Generally though, when people treat white line, they tend to think of the problem at the foot. But the problem is really not in the foot, it's in the inside of the horse. It's the immune system. And, thrush and white line needs to really be treated from the inside out. Just putting stuff topically on the hoof is not going to take it away. And I say that because if you really think about it with horses, usually there's 3 or 4 horses in the barn where there's thrush or white line, and usually it's just one that has it. If it were truly just a fungus or whatever it is that's causing it, they'd all have it. So that just emphasizes to me that the real key to treating thrush and white line is treating it from the inside out, boosting their immune system, in other words, so that their body can fight it off themselves rather than just putting stuff on it topically. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. As a farrier, I've noticed that a horse with white line disease also usually has an out of balance foot.
Right.
What is it in the horse's system that is out of balance when they get it?
Well, another good question, because usually the possibilities are too numerous to really go over all of them, but the key thing that you got to look at is minerals. We have so many supplements for our horses today and so many so-called complete feeds, which, personally I have an issue with because I don't think there is a complete feed. We have salt blocks that they can't get what they need from, mineral blocks that they're not getting what they need from them because, they can't lick fast enough to get it. And then we're giving them all these supplements that may or may not have what they need based on man's recommendations, and we don't even know everything they need yet. So I just keep going back to natural. What does Mother Nature do? Well, Mother Nature provides minerals to horses in the wild in the form of dirt. They're eating dirt, and that's where we've got to go back to is get the natural stuff in these horses that Mother Nature intended them to have rather than what man intended them to have. And until you get the minerals right, nothing else really matters. So that's the first thing I'd look at.
When you go to treat a condition such as thrush or white line disease, and you want to treat it from the inside out, what are the things that you use?
Okay, well, we actually have a herbal blend to boost their immune system. Not to give you commercial here, I don't want to do that, but it's truly an herbal blend of products. It literally helps boost the immune system, but it contains things like astragalus and boswellia, and those are great anti-inflammatory herbs, by the way, such that when you have an inflammatory process like thrush and white line, you need to address. It also has other herbs like grapeseed and things to help get rid of the junk out of the body, because if you have any issue on the skin or hooves, many times the body's trying to get rid of something too. So you need to help the body get rid of the junk, so to speak. So that's all the more need for an antioxidant, so to speak. That's what antioxidants do, is they get rid of junk out of the body. The body tends to rust just from living, just from breathing. That's the process called oxidation. And antioxidations or antioxidants helps get rid of the rust, so to speak.
How important is it to get the message of the science that's behind this stuff out to the horse owners, and how can we do that?
Well, that's a tough one, because I'm beating the bushes every weekend just trying to get out there and talk to as many people as I can about health issues. We've just bombarded our horses today with so much stuff, all the vaccinations, all the chemicals, all the dewormers. When was the last time you were vaccinated? Long time ago probably. In the same way with chemical dewormers, we're doing that based on the calendar instead of based on the need. We should be doing fecal exams on our horses and seeing what they have and treating them accordingly, rather than just indiscriminately deworming, in my opinion, because we've bombarded our horses with so much junk. They don't know which end's up. Their immune systems are just so out of whack, and they're full of so much junk, if that makes sense.
I'm standing with Terry Cronin of DeCloet Structures. Terry, you're setting a higher standard for equestrian architecture. Tell us a little bit about these buildings and why they're different.
We've gone to a clear span building, a lot of natural light. It's quieter, better airflow in the environment. Try to keep more comfortable for horses. And we've clear span from 60 to 160 feet. We've gone to like a peak style building. It's more traditional look, matches in with existing buildings most people have. We can go to many different colors. We do from commercial to dairy barns to horse arenas, but it's really taken off in the equestrian.
Next time on Unbridled.
Rotational grazing is the alternate grazing and then resting of a pasture so that we can maximize the amount of leaf area for capturing solar energy from the sun so that pastures can grow to their maximum potential.
That's next week on Unbridled with Susan Kayne.